after Carthage is destroyed, the Romans turn against each other. Okay, the first thing that happens is something called the social wars. Basically, it's the Roman allies who were told to fight a war, and in return they were granted citizenship. They were not granted citizenship, so they rebelled against the Roman state, and this led to civil war. Okay, but the problem is you're not fighting the Roman army, so you're not going to win. So eventually, the Roman state had to give in and give citizenship to these people. Okay, this is one of the most radical turning points in Roman history. So right now, there's massive inequality in Rome. The nobility have all the land, and they have slaves to work the land. The peasants are having problems feeding themselves in the cities, okay? So now what do you do? So this man is named Tiberius Gracchus, and he's a reformer, and he says basically, hey guys, here's what we're gonna do. The rich have all this land. We're not gonna touch that because we have to respect private property. But there's all this public land that's not being used. It belongs to the Roman state. We have all these poor people that want to work the land, but they have no land. So what we'll do is this. We'll take public land that no one's touching, okay? No one's using this stuff. Give it to the people to work to generate more wealth for our society. We have more tax revenue. The people are happier. And yeah, and no one gets hurt, okay? Perfect solution, right? Because he proposed a solution, the nobility, the ultimates, beat him to death, okay? Not only did they beat him to death, they beat his brother to death as well. Okay? Why do they do this? Because nobility is, how dare you steal our public land from us? Okay? So nobility was like, this public land belongs to us, man. Because we are the state. Screw the people. Okay? All right, so of course, this leads to the rise of dictators. So there have been different dictators who've come to power, and they've tried to solve this social conflict within Rome. The first is Marius, who promised reform but really didn't deliver. Then you have Sulla, okay? And Sulla's solution was really simple. Let's just kill all the reformers. Pretty simple, guys, okay? Our problem isn't the inequality. The problem is you got too many people who propose reform. So he just killed all the reformers, okay? And then after he killed all the reformers, he retired. One of these reformers who got away was Julius Caesar, okay? So Julius Caesar, because his family was very wealthy, was able to escape Sulla. But he's a very ambitious man. So now he's going to build his political career based on the discontent of the people. And what he's going to do is that he's going to bribe his way into office so that he can get a generalship to go invade Gaul. Okay? So he goes to Gaul, which is in modern-day France. He spends many years there. What's he doing there? Okay. Well, if you look at official Roman history, what he's doing there is he's trying to pacify the people of Gaul. Okay, so he has these series of military campaigns in Gaul, and it culminates in. So he's leading his soldiers into war in Gaul. And it culminates in something called the Battle of Alesia, which is one of the most famous battles in history. Basically, what's happened is that this is the very last battle of Caesar's Gallic campaign. What he's done is he's surrounded a village where his enemies are, okay? But his enemies send word to all the Gallic tribes to come and converge against the Romans. So what the Romans do is they build fortifications to block out the invaders, okay? So they're fighting wars on both fronts. They're fighting in the inside against the enemies trapped here. They're also fighting against the enemies coming from outside as well. And Alesia is one of the greatest battles in human history. And again, we have reason to think that this didn't happen, okay? So what was Caesar doing in Gaul, and why was he starting all these wars? The answer is really simple, okay? There are three reasons. The first is, remember, slaves are the most valuable commodity at this time. So what he's doing is he's basically capturing slaves. He's going and he's starting these wars in order to capture slaves. Caesar said famously, I killed a third of people in Gaul, I enslaved a third of them, and then I left a third alone. Okay, so he basically committed genocide against the people of Gaul. And what's important to understand is he probably exaggerated. He probably didn't kill a third. Why? Because if he captures slaves, a lot of this money has to go to the Roman state. But if he pretends to kill the Gauls, but actually enslaves them, then all the money goes to him, okay? So by enslaving people, he became filthy rich. In fact, he became the wealthiest man in Rome. And he used his money to bribe his friends into office, okay? So he became also the most politically powerful individual in Rome. That's the reason number one why he went to Gaul. Second is that Caesar was trying to build a loyal army, a private army that was loyal to him. And so just because he was able to give money to these soldiers not only were loyal to him, but they also developed a lot of fun experience while in Gaul, right? So now Caesar has the world's most powerful army. The third reason why he went to Gaul, and this is the most important, is to create a myth of himself as a great conqueror. All these great politicians understand people don't really understand the difference between reality and fantasy. In fact, they don't care about the difference, okay? People will believe what they want to believe. So what Caesar was doing was he was going to Gaul, and then he was getting people to go back to Rome and announce all his victories, okay? We have reason to believe that a lot of these victories were made up. But it gave the impression among the Romans that Caesar was this great conqueror, okay? So think of this guy, right? What's he doing? He's trying to create an image of himself as energetic, dynamic, virile, right? Right? Does that make sense? Oh, and a better example, of course, is this guy, okay? All right, Donald Trump. He spent a lot of years in the World Wrestling Federation trying to portray himself as macho, as energetic, as strong, right? And then for over 10 years, he had the most popular television show on TV called The Apprentice, where he pretended to be this savvy genius of a business person, right? The Apprentice. And this is what really launched his political career, all right? So this is all these great politicians understand. If you really want to have a great political career, you have to create a myth of yourself as an entrepreneurial military genius. Okay, so after Gaul, the Roman Senate basically gets really annoyed at Caesar because they understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to become king of Rome. So they basically try to impeach him, okay? They want to put him on trial. So Caesar basically rebels against them, and this starts a civil war. And what's going to happen is that Caesar is going to go conquer the entire Roman Empire. Now, it's one man and his army against the entire empire. So he should have lost. The problem is that the Optimates are really stupid, arrogant, and lazy, okay? Pompey, General Pompey, is fighting for the Optimates, and he's going against Caesar. And Pompey's strategy, it's really simple, okay? Caesar has control over Italy. There's a problem though. Italy is poor. It does not produce enough food. So all we have to do is lay siege to Italy, and the people will starve, war is over. That's all we have to do, right? We don't have to fight Caesar. Just lay siege to Italy. The people starve, the people rebel against Caesar, and then Caesar loses the war. The problem though is the Optimates were afraid that if Pompey won the war, then they would make Pompey king, right? So what the Optimates wanted to do was force Pompey and Julius Caesar into a battle and kill both, okay? They wanted to destroy both. And this led to something called the Battle of Pharsalus. Remember, at this time, Caesar needs to go fight Pompey, but Pompey doesn't have to actually fight Caesar, but the Optimates force him to fight in a battle called Pharsalus, okay? And in this battle, because Caesar has a loyal army, they defeat Pompey, even though Pompey has more soldiers, okay? And then what Caesar will do is then go conquer the entire Roman Empire, and he makes himself dictator of Rome. And this, of course, leads to his assassination. Why is he assassinated? Because the Romans are afraid that he'll make himself king, and he will abolish the debt of the people, and he will reappropriate the land and give it to the people, okay? He will basically make himself king by making Rome a much more equal and egalitarian place. And so they killed him. And this led to more civil war in which Augustus Caesar will be triumphant because he will inherit Julius Caesar's army. And at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, he would destroy Mark Antony and Cleopatra and make himself the supreme ruler of the Roman Empire. Okay? And he's really considered the first Roman emperor. But what's really important for us to understand is, at this point in history, the problems of Rome don't really go away. He is emperor, and during his time, things are stable. But after he dies, the Roman Empire goes back into civil war. And it does not stop fighting civil war until its very collapse, okay? What makes him emperor is the fact that he will take Egypt and turn it into his private property. And he will use the wealth of Egypt to fund the army. So all the soldiers are now loyal to him individually as opposed to the Roman state. Okay? Now, Augustus Caesar, he was not a military genius, but he appreciated that if the Roman people were to survive, they needed a culture as distinct and as powerful as Greek culture. At this time in history, the Greeks were culturally dominant. And he was afraid that over time, all Romans would just become Greeks. So he needed to create a culture that was distinct from the Greeks, but also considered much more powerful than the Greeks, okay? So that was his major contribution to the Roman Empire. So what he does is, he takes the work of Polybius. Remember, Polybius is the main architect of the history of Roman Empire, and he tells Livy to basically rewrite the history, but from a Roman lens, as opposed to a Greek lens, okay? So this is a really famous book written by Livy, sponsored by Octavius Caesar, okay? So we're gonna read a bit of it to understand the Roman mentality, okay? All right. All right, so what's happening is this. The book starts with the founding of Rome. And in the Roman tradition, what's going to happen is the Romans are descendants of Troy. Remember, Troy in the Iliad was destroyed by the Greeks. How did the Greeks destroy Troy? Through trickery, through deception, right? The Trojan horse. And then what will happen is the Greeks flood into the city and kill everyone. But there's a Trojan general named Aeneas and his wife Cretia. What they will do is they will escape, okay? In order to found Rome. Now, Cretia is the wife, and what she will do is, as they're leaving Troy, she will kill herself in order to allow Aeneas to escape fully. Okay? So in the Roman tradition, all that matters is the father. Okay? So you can see the father can't walk, so Aeneas has to shoulder him to the ship. And women don't matter at all. Okay? That's the Roman tradition. All right, so what happens next is Rome is founded by twins, Romulus and Remus. And